Okay, so P2 sides here. What we'll do for colors, we'll just do FaZe in the red. We'll do New York in the yellow.
Not to pick FaZe in terms of who I'm favoring, but I would.
Or should we'll do New York in the blue, just because it's a little bit more different than the pink.
Learn how to play this map. Pick whoever you think the best player is. If you're an SMG, Simper or BZ's a great.
Well, I thought that conversation would be in talks, to be honest, Will Frosty, because it's G8 in Europe. So I feel like that was going to be a conversation piece pretty early on into the stage.
Got to look at on the ARs, whoever it's going to be. Watch how they work on the mini map. See how these rotations play out. The faster you learn this map, the
yeah, so it's a bit interesting off the rip, just to kind of, we'll go backwards and we'll watch it here again. From the right side of the minimap, you get natural favor overall. Let me move this sucker up a little bit so we can see it. The minimap is so low on the map. It's kind of wild. It's kind of interesting to see how Atlanta wants to posture here, where you've got essentially a 4-lane setup. You've got one underneath that's wholly responsible for watching this barrels push, one up top to kind of clear up top TV, one playing for the hard point, and then one just kind of trying to help as much as humanly possible. This feels pretty stock. The opening route going towards the outside just to check if there's an additional push through, I think is probably going to be pretty stock and standard. And I do also like that New York is trying to just kind of avoid this off the rip and just play for the hard point. If you remember back, they actually play this hard point very successfully. I think they get like 33 overall seconds on this, but they never get an opportunity to influence back here all too often. Not until like halfway through the second hard point is already going, if I'm remembering correctly. So for New York, you've got a 2-2 split up. You've got both of your ARs sitting this direction, so expect to see them play pretty passive, either over here through Coop or over just on the backside, kind of lingering, waiting. And the entire focus of this push through is actually to win this location. The idea is if they can win underground, that'll give an opportunity for their ARs to try to get a little bit more aggressive and try to take this player down up top. That's kind of what I'm reading off the rip here. So we'll see if that is largely what we're getting here. And the thing about this Atlanta setup as well, with this opening kind of setup where you're stalling right here, you don't need this player up top on jump up yet. So it makes sense that why not just sit here, defend against an early potential push through in which players can rotate back if they need to help, or once the gunfight starts to unfold in front of the hard point, you can just rotate over and you haven't really lost anything, because let's be honest, from up top over here, you really can't see too much. So everything is about what happens underneath. And you can see DiamondCon has actually jumped up. You can see it right here. He's jumped up to play from top TV. So he's just trying to contest against anybody up on the top side. And this is why New York ends up doing a really nice job on this first hard point. They technically have superior numbers here. With where they're positioned, there's really not an angle that a player from jump up can really do too much to foil this play. So this is actually a really cool setup, I think, for what New York is trying to do, focusing for the underground. Good win. So Clay's able to stay alive. And again, just kind of passively keep an eye. Number one is Arcides. See how many kills he gets from this position. There's a lot of low ground that you can kind of hide behind stuff and avoid that play up top by Arcides. And I thought this play right here, I mean, we'll go back and take a look at this where the spawns are. You have to keep in mind that the spawns for this first hard point are largely right to left, where you've got the team spawning on the right, team spawning on the left. It kind of depends on what the push through looks like. If a player is pushed through over towards the bottom side or top side of TV, they might be spawning a little bit further back. If they're not, they might be spawning a little further forward. But largely, you're going to get a spawn that's in this area versus a spawn that's in this area. I haven't really seen too many blocks of spawns. It's kind of like the same thing that you would expect for like a Moscow or something like that, where it's difficult to flip, but there's a lot of neutral abilities when it comes to like, okay, we're spawning them a little further this way, we're spawning them a little further this way, things you could do. But with this spawn up, this is now going to be the second attempt here for New York, and this is actually when they're going to try to make their push through attempt happen, which I really like the timing of this a lot, just because, again, if you think about what the opening defense was for Atlanta, they keep a player sitting over by a temple or by ruins to watch that cave push through, and then they eventually need to back them up. So you know that there's not going to be more than two players on the top side of the map. So don't even bother trying to push through initially. Save that for the second go, where you might be able to sneak a player through, especially considering the fact that you still have a player on the hard point. So you know that a player up top at jump up is going to be watching for any potential push throughs, because the players off spawn have to keep that bottom route safe. So this is actually a really heads-up play, I feel like, for Rasim. It just kind of ends up not being fully successful because RCD stays alive right here. And then he kind of gets a little bit of help because it's Simp who comes up from behind to deal with it. So it's a good play overall. I love the play because what that essentially does with that little bit of success, it allows the numbers with the other two players that are here with when Clayster was in this position to actually win out these areas. It just comes down to what happens next. And with 28 seconds left, I think P2 is going to be very difficult to break, I feel like. This reminds me very much so of Hackney Yard because once we get P2 opened up right here in front of Gold, the spawns aren't just Temple. The spawns are also right outside of Rugs, like in this back Gold side. You'll see, I think Atlanta, I think it was this game where Atlanta spawns a couple of players while New York is trying to make a play this direction. They end up blocking this bottom spawn, but Atlanta still spawns in. So it's very difficult. What's up, Fame? How you doing, buddy? And I think overall, if I were to nitpick, I would say that Mac should forfeit the hard point in favor of number 5 coming off spawn, which is a seam to grab it, and you're sending 2 players to try to push through here. Because you've already got pressure from Clayster, who I think spawned somewhere in this direction. He's already making his way forward to try to contest caves. So I think you could probably just get rid of the hard point here and just full commit to try to push forward as fast as possible. Because with 27 seconds left, if Clay could get forward, these 2 players could move this direction, and then number 5 gets on the hard point. Think what that does. Sorry, wrong screen. Think what that does to the 50-50 split of the hard point itself on the map, because P1 is still active. So if you could get onto this side and stay alive, every kill you find should technically spawn Atlanta back here. So that's kind of, think about it very similarly to how you would flip over a, trying to think of a good example is off the top of my head. Like Raid would be an example where you're able to get through Kitchen. Like, let's say that this is, again, unfavored side. Let's say that this is like Kitchen. You can get through Kitchen and through that first hard point. You can force your opponent to spawn behind you. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking at here, and I think it's just a little too passive. So they do eventually start making a push through, but watch where these spawn. Because these should be a block spawn right here. This should be a 50-50 spawn. 2 players have fallen. Celium should spawn somewhere in the back. Not sure where. I want to say he spawns here, and then behind him, Clayster spawns back here, if I'm remembering this correctly. Yeah, so there's number 2. It's actually a little bit different, so I misremembered this. Clayster spawns south, and then you've got Celium who spawns up top. So the pressure is good enough, right? I mean, hey, that's like mission nearly successful. I just think that because of how they hit this, you just lost out a little bit too individualistically. I would have loved to have seen them try to combine a little bit more. It's just one of those things that this opening gunfight, which we'll kind of zoom back here a little bit, is keep your eye on number 7 is Diamond Con. So Simp gets the trade, but then watch this gunfight that's off screen that happens at the very bottom. Actually, it doesn't happen on the bottom. So Diamond Con is already up here, but look where Mac is. He's not a part of this play. So the only win condition here is if Diamond Con wins this 1v1 and takes out Arcides. Otherwise, the trades are going to favor Atlanta. If it goes purely 1-for-1, because this should be a 2-for-1 fight versus Arcides, then there's an opportunity because you also have number 4 who's rotating over late to help this. So it's just a little bit unfortunate, the timing of this. Mac does find the trade, but Abizi's already there to help. Could have been maybe a little bit faster. Maybe I'm just way nitpicking and I'm completely blasted, but I would have liked to have seen him give up a little bit of that hard point time in favor of playing for that rotation. Now you've got Atlanta FaZe that after their spawns, where remember we had number 2 spawn up here, and we had number 6 spawn down here. Atlanta just completely move across the map again. They know they've got a free route, even if they spawn out to get to this position. So reinforce back here. Hold on to this. You've got 4 seconds till you've locked in spawns to the next hard point. So, but still, at the end of all of that, and I'm going to be going into more detail about this map because we're only going to be doing these 2 maps tonight. I think in the end, you're still really pleased with this if you're New York. You got 36 seconds on a first hard point in which you're not normally all that favored for, I feel like. Could be wrong. Maybe that bad side for the map because you're late to P2 is actually a favorable side for a P1 win. It's too early to tell, but I walked away watching this and sitting there saying that New York should feel very good about getting that 36-11. That was a pretty important spree. Now, the problem here is the timing of this, because this last push through that we just had, where we went 2 for 1 with like 6 seconds left, everybody spawned out, and we have zero pressure for New York over towards not just the spawn alley, but also the hard point. So Atlanta could actually zone pretty aggressively. They're still locking things down because why not? And I think a lot of the reason is because you've got Arcides who's actually already watching this. So the setup for Atlanta is we're going to keep 2 players watching our temple spawns, 1 player making sure jump up stays safe, and 1 player making sure that the play through ruin stays safe. I think that that's really, really heads up play from Atlanta, and it puts them in a really favorable spot to read this rotation from the subliners. Are they going to be playing? And the 2 options that they have, and this is the problem, and I saw Paris that was talking about this on the TL, and I agree with him. The problem with this hard point is you only have 2 options. Going up the jump up is not really a safe option unless you're getting pressure somewhere else. Like if you can get onto, like, you know how there's like that little divider wall and you can kind of see through the window? If you can get someone up the caves and put pressure from that window, then you start to flood? Yeah, maybe. Because you have to figure that the defense rotating over is largely going to be in a spot to watch this, but not this. So you have to make a decision here if you're New York. Are we trying to hit from the front with maybe a little bit of help from the middle? Or are we going to try to full play for the back? There's really not an ability in my mind to play for jump up when we're trying to play for the temple because it's just too isolated. This play is not going to come through to meet this one in time. So you might as well put a lot of pressure onto the back. So it just comes down to, can Atlanta read this setup, I think, overall? And they are going to get a pretty solid look at this. Asim has already been tagged. Clayster falls. And you can already see the red arrows. They're already kind of turning around, just making sure everything stays safe. Kind of even see it right there from Arcides. Let's keep an eye on number 1 really quick. You can kind of get that read. He finds that first kill. And he's going to come back to make sure he can help for this jump up because number 3 is going to back up to make sure nobody plays through rugs, essentially. Right there, boom. That little toggle play is where you kind of get that read. But that's the problem right there. Spawn up right in the back corner. The pressure that's actually doing really nice, that's coming in through really nicely through New York, is still not enough to flip these spawns around. And they do kind of turn to commit to playing for the jump up here, which you're at 38 seconds. So there's an argument, I think, to kind of be made that playing for spawns isn't the best option because if you start to play for spawns, that's going to be down to 30 seconds. This hit will get you down to 25 to 20 seconds. And if you don't find any success while your teammates are coming off of this spawn through here, you essentially allow a free exit for Atlanta to flip the map. Sorry, that was all on the mini screen. So it's kind of a tough decision to make. Do we want to try to play around the back, in which we know we're going to be contested somewhere by gold, or do we want to try to flood in with a little bit of help from the front? I actually kind of agree with the call to flood in from the front here, take the jump wall double hit. The problem is, it's just how do you win that gunfight? I wouldn't say you have to leave P2. It's just, in my mind, the way that I'm thinking about the hard points is in segments of 20, and outside of the first 20 seconds, you have to be very careful with when you decide you want to play for spawns because you become in the threat of, okay, 20 seconds is already gone. Now we're starting to set up. There's 30 seconds. There's 25 seconds. Cool. We've got these back spawns, but it's only for the scrap 20. And now we're in a position to where, yeah, maybe we got that back 20 seconds, but Atlanta can essentially trap us in this while we have to play for P3. So it essentially guarantees a rotational win for your opponent if you commit to playing for spawns and you win those spawns. Just because of how trepidatious it is to kind of move through the different obstacles that are in front of you. P3 can be very scrappy, but if you get players in positions around here, it's very easy to keep forcing your opponent to spawn out this way and get free angles on them. I don't think the third hard point is nearly as scrappy as people think it is. I think the scrappiest P3 in the game right now is on checkmate. And we've even seen teams very successfully zone opponents away. So I would take that scrap 20 seconds if that means I could at least contest P3. I think the question is, can you, though? You know, we don't have a situation to look at, but there is a threat of being spawn trapped back here and not being able to come over and get through this space Because you have to either, the decision that you would have to make, I feel like, and this is all very hypothetical, is, oh, what's up, NRG? What's your opinion overall for Apocalypse? I think it's okay. Do I think it's a steep improvement from Crossroads? Not necessarily. But I definitely think it is an improvement, so it's nice to have a more balanced map. The thing about it, think that P2 is still active. The spawns are going to be in one of these two locations. If Atlanta gets bounced out, but has a player playing on barrels, player playing topside TV, maybe someone sitting in Coop and someone on the hard point, your options for New York are to come through this way, in which you're going into a choke point, come over the jump wall, which isn't at all safe because choke point, or you're wrapping all the way around the back, which means you're giving away 20 to 25 seconds worth of hard point time. So there is potential to be spawn trapped in my mind on this third hard point, or on the second spawns going to the third hard point. Last attempt for New York, and this is another kind of dangerous situation. And again, I don't have a clear answer for you guys. We're just kind of figuring it out ourselves. But look what's happening here. Because this play was unsuccessful, well, not for the initial play for spawns is unsuccessful, yeah? That gets chalked. We then play for the jump up with a little bit of a pinch from the front. That gets chalked. The last attempt comes from the front. That gets chalked. And all the meanwhile, it's been the same defensive setup for Atlanta almost all the way through. Yeah, there was that one moment where the players spawned in this back alley, but they exited this way. So now you have an opportunity to where Atlanta reads the last hit was coming from the front. So these two players, because again, you don't want to be spawn trapped. We're at 18 seconds left in the hard point. Technically, we're at like 25. Not even. We're actually like 30 seconds. It's a little bit of a pinch situation. Let's just watch this from Atlanta's POV real quick in the red. That's the jump up hit that gets completely shut down by a BZ. So this player is going to come to reinforce the hill. Watch number 2 in Celium, how he starts to make a play across the map. Because at this point, he doesn't really care about defending spawns. He cares about stopping a pinch through mid and then maybe rotating early because he can. This is what I like to call, like, in the system. If you're new here, this is kind of how I like to explain hard points. I know that if you've been here before, you've heard this a million times. But I think about it in segments of 20 seconds. I really just need to put this on a document. Where in that initial 20, you're trying to lock spawns down. And you're trying to zone the hard point. Yeah? And by that, okay, we'll talk about what each of that means. In the middle 20, you're trying to lock the hard point and potentially look for the rotation. And then in the scrap 20, you try to finesse the hard point and then zone the roto. Okay? The reason why I say these things, think about it from both teams' perspectives. Let's take it from the team that is set up initially for the next hard point. We'll put it in the perspective of point 2 real quick. Atlanta's job right now is to lock down the spawns, which they were able to do, if you remember, by their setup. And they're trying to zone the hard point. So if you remember, they lock the spawns and they zone the hard point to a way that they're contesting this space and they're contesting this space. You kind of see what I mean when it comes to zoning. The other option would be like what is not zoning the hard point is like we're playing here. That is not zoning the hard point. That's allowing a free route to start to come around the back. It's allowing an opportunity for them to get into cave or hit with no information. Okay, that's kind of what I mean when I say zoning the hard point. And the whole time you're trying to lock down the spawns, right? Atlanta's trying to make sure that this area is completely under lock and key, and then they're also zoning from multiple angles to make sure they can read where the New York hit would be coming from, yeah? Does that make sense? In that middle 20 seconds, yeah, I was kind of curious to see how synonymous this hill would be with like a Hackney P2 Glow Frosty. It's actually really wild. You're trying to lock the hard point in the 20 seconds. So for Atlanta, that means that you had a player up front that was Arcides. He dealt with Clay coming this direction. Wants to make sure he can help for the push through here. Gets these kills. Same situation happens where we spawn back here. Come through. Make sure we're getting these eliminations. We're locking the hard point. We're no longer playing in a situation to where we're only focused on this space and this space. It's more like we're locking things down from this space and this space. We want to lock that down. And if that gunfight is won, or if we're getting to the tail end of that middle 20 seconds, then we try to look for the rotation. And that's what we're getting from Celium here. He's recognizing, with 30 seconds to play still on the clock, that he doesn't have to necessarily worry about locking down spawns anymore. He's not worried about this space. He wants to try to work on looking at the rotation. And while doing so, he also cuts off any play from coming up the middle, which means what? The only play that New York can make, because they're not going to play for spawns anymore, has to come from the front. And that's why you see number 3 start to move over towards the hard point to help reinforce as well. And then at the very end, the last 20 seconds, that scrap 20, you're trying to finesse the hard point with whoever happens to be left, and you're trying to zone the rotation. What you're going to see is, once this hard point is won, I believe it's Simp who comes to join this play, and they start to zone this rotation to where they're in spaces that can contest essentially through this space. And then you've got a free look at opening up that 30, where you can go back again to locking down spawns and zoning the hard point. Does that kind of make sense? Like how I'm thinking about it in my mind? I'm not saying that that's the right way to do it. It's just the way that I think about it. On the other side, if we were to take it from New York's point of view, their first attempt is to lock the spawns. They want to try to play for spawns in the back, or play in a way that denies the ability for Atlanta to zone the hard point. They want to try to get into a position to where they're contesting and forcing Atlanta to play inside that square. They're not going to be the ones zoning the hard point. They're the ones denying that zonability of the hard point. You're threatening spawns. You're trying to win spawns in that opening 20. And if possible, while players are coming off respawn, you want to make sure that Atlanta does not feel comfortable to hit a pinch or reinforce or something like that through the back. Let's say that they don't get those spawn plays. The next play is to lock down the hard point. You don't want to play through here anymore. They want to try to make a play through here and lock down the hard point to where they can get in and try to defend it from, like, essentially what is this space. Defend this side of the hard point. And then you're looking at the rotation. So if New York can get in and you get that set up, then you're looking to zone that rotation by keeping Atlanta spawn trapped, essentially. And at the very end, you're just trying to essentially finesse the hard point while making sure you're in spots to lock down that roto. I hope that's kind of the way that I'm thinking about it in a way. What makes APOC not as good as map as the people say it is? I think it's just overgassed right now because it's new. I think it is fun. I think it's very colorful. I think it's a very cool aesthetic, and the map overall is built well. But is it the most incredible Call of Duty map to ever exist? I don't think so. Let's see here. I'm trying to catch up on chat here because you guys had a lot of really good things to say, I noticed, while I was going through that. Plus, you have to be careful with the spawn trap against a team like FaZe, which is so cracked out with gun skills. So how do you break the hill with that setup against a team with good gun skills, especially because they're spawning on the point? I don't know. The only way that you could really kind of do it in my mind is you kind of have to think about it like a P3 garrison, where if the spawns are kind of neighboring the hard point in the back over here, you want to try to work into a position where you're forcing them to spawn back there, and you're kind of denying their ability to reinforce the hill. You essentially have to win trades. Get into a power position to where you're able to kind of contest players coming off spawn until you get to a point where you eventually flip. You put just enough pressure to have them flip. It's kind of the same thing that happens in Garrison. Let me pull it up real quick. Excuse me. There it is. It's kind of the same thing on Garrison, if you think about it, in my mind. Let's say the red team is the team that is spawning in the back over here. Okay? And maybe they've got a nice successful zone. Looks something like this. Who knows? Maybe they're even more aggressive. Let's make them a little bit more aggressive because we see this happening pretty often right now. Something that looks like that. Aggressive zone. The idea for the team in blue is you want to try to get to a spot that allows you to start putting pressure onto the hard point and around, specifically towards the spawns. If you can get into space, this is so huge. If you can get into space inside of here, maybe even to the front of tools, and then also by this green area, as the spawns are still going to be safe for the team in red, as soon as you start putting some pressure over towards those spawns, that might be enough to block. And eventually, maybe even force 50-50 spawns to where it kind of turns into a conga line, depending on who dies first, right? We see that pretty regularly. So the idea is, it's kind of the same thing. If you're in a position here on P3, you're trying to break. Do we want to just focus purely on getting here? Not necessarily in my mind. I think if you could get to a spot to where, hey, this guy is just playing defensively around the truck. This guy's getting in tools and playing defensively, and then you're kind of forced to push through this way. So essentially you've got defense, defense, offense. Eventually, as that defense starts to creep up into this space, that will be enough to force these spawns to be behind you. So it's kind of like you have to wait and play efficient trades game is kind of what I'm thinking about for this map overall. The conga line spawns? Absolutely. It's got to be 3 go back temple and 1 just front and hope the trades work in the back for the front guy. That's the exact what I'm, yes. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Get to a point where you've got at least 2. Oh my God, I'm going the wrong way with styes. At least 2 players playing through temple. Maybe you could sneak someone into caves. Maybe you could sneak someone into a corner off this jump wall. And then eventually you're playing off the trades from this, like, as you're making, you got to think it takes time, and the game is always adapting. So as you're set up here and trying to make this playthrough, there may still be a timing to where a couple of members will spawn here, which is exactly what we got with Atlanta just a moment ago. But your hope is that these players can play their lives long enough to where these guys can start getting some kills and eventually block the spawns. It's the same exact way that we've seen hardpoints be played, like Hack the Yard last year, kind of, sort of, where you're just trying to overwhelm one side and defensively posture on the other to eventually either put them in a trap or put enough pressure to spawn them out. So in Glow Frosty's words, and I agree with this, it's got to be you got to have 3 people going back temple, 1 just in the front, and hope the trades work out in the back, and the guy front gets a kill, because then they would get split spawns. Exactly. And I figured the spawns would probably be something that looks like what we got, you know, for P1, which was something like that. So 30 seconds left. This is what we're getting back to. We got a little off track there. Watch the play here. Again, trying to zone off this rotation. Cell hits a route to kind of keep this safe. And you got to also keep in mind that we're not in the scrap 20 yet. So Atlanta's trying to lock down this hard point. We're reinforcing off spawn. We're making a play to kind of cut off a pinch. And also this kind of serves as a natural pinch to where once the kill comes through for free, now all of a sudden, look at all this pasture that Celium is going to have to play with. There's the kills. And watch Cell. He's going to play a little bit passive because he's got an AR, but he's going to go immediately up top and just try to zone off this rotation. He's trying to stop any play from happening right here while he waits for help. It's going to be a Beezy, and I think a Beezy goes underneath to try to play from this spot. So you've got an AR up top, hopefully watching for anyone crossing. Information is good. Kills are better. And then you've got a Beezy that can use that information to kind of position himself and expect when the kills are coming through. And meanwhile, the last 2 players, now we're in the scrap 20. They just need to be finessing in and around the hard point. So Cell does find a kill. And just look at the position that Atlanta's able to get. They get essentially a full lockdown 60. Cell is contesting all of this crossing space. And a Beezy's in a position where he can put pressure on these back spawns. It allows a free rotation for Atlanta to get here to P3 first. This is exactly how you're going to be able to put scrap to initial. And you got to think about this angle right here as well from a Beezy. He's got no ability to test anything up top on the sandbags that are right here. From this position, he can't see anything. He's just contesting this space. So someone's going to have to pick up that space. And I would have to imagine that Celium is going to be the one to kind of watch this crossing space to give information. And you've got Arcides who's on the way in to try to help. And the only option for New York is to have to go into the teeth of this defense. That's the only option. They could take the long route down low. They could try to get up top over the TV. There might be an opportunity to try to come around through here, through Coop. But everything is into the teeth of this because Atlanta have won this rotation to the next hard point based on how the hits were working for New York. Or not working for New York in this instance. Yeah, it's a decent clear, though, of a BZ overall. It gives an opportunity. This is actually really smart from New York. They're not going to overshell. We need help. We are able to clear up some space down here. Let's use this as our staging ground. Okay? Got one player that could potentially make something happen. You don't really want to go through and around. You could. Still early. Not the worst case scenario if you have to spawn out here with 40 seconds to play. Obviously, the preferred spawns are on this side, though, coming for 4 and 5 because you can lock down the middle of the map and you could get freely into the hard point. So the preferred spawns would have to be on the left side overall. But it's not the worst case scenario if Clayster decides to take a long route and try to pinch behind this play because it's still very early.
Backs him up. Oh, big shots, trades once again, and FaZe comes out on top. You see the sort of back and forth we go.
Yeah, and I think if Clayster is able to, if this setup, if it just is able to wait a little bit longer for Clay to come through, that may have been a little bit more successful. But the problem is you just got a player in the back for free. This is all about Atlanta knowing exactly what's being zoned and where the people onto the hard point have to turn their attention. You've got Simp up top that's saying, hey, I've got everything through your P1. Everybody else just focus on what's coming from ladder and what's coming from lower. Because of this position right here. That's just information gathering. He doesn't even have to find a kill. He'd love to because Simp's on 5 right now, but that's outside of the point of conversation in my mind. He just has to play for information. And if a play ends up coming through this way, he can communicate that to his teammates to turn around. I wonder, and I don't know, I wonder if he could make this play happen from somewhere a little bit closer up. From like somewhere like in a window or something up here or from at the top of this platform. The only thing that would leave would be a wide open lane for someone to flank behind. So it's one of those situations that not only is Simp here to kind of help deny the cross, even if he dies of someone coming on a flank, guess what? That's still information given to his team. I think P2 and P3 are extremely rotation heavy because they can become very tough to break. Feels that way. I would be tempted to agree. I don't feel like this third hard point is nearly as scrappy as other third hard points in the map. And Simp actually found himself an AR. And you can even see it there for a moment. Let's go backwards just a second. So Simp finds that kill, middle of the map, from this spot, and he already is looking towards that new rotation. 40 seconds. Not going to rotate fully yet. He's just trying to deny a flank playthrough. But you have to imagine if New York tries to full flood this again, guess who's going to be making a play through? He's defending this right now. There's no need to be in this spot because he's got teammates that are now here to watch this after the respawns come in. So Simp is in a position to where he can come back and help, or he can push through this defensive hold and make a play for P5 spawns. Or P4, sorry, P4 spawns. Really heads up play.
Here in this top ammo position, the armory. We'll see a hard point float over there in just a moment. But for now, we're still over by the underside of the catwalk. Making his
and New York is starting to flood a little bit, but you can kind of again see the duality between what's happening between Celium and Simp. Cell says, I can't watch over here anymore. I've got to go help the hard point. Mostly that you can figure that out subconsciously because look at the kill feed. You've lost 2. So Simp should know that, hey, that's 1, 2, 3 New York members. That means there's really nobody that could be coming this direction. I need to turn my attention back over here to help defend. While Cell turns his attention to go help the hard point. So, again, really good duality between both of these guys. And now the question is on New York. How do you want to play this scrap time? Because they would love to get this 20 seconds. It would make the game tight, but they're going to be shorthanded on this rotation. And that's that play again from Simp. To where they're deciding how they want to play it. I had to go back and see what happened to Celium here. I was watching from New York's POV. Looks like they decide to chalk. 25 seconds left. They're already deciding to chalk, or at least Simp is. Maybe players can still rotate through depending on their spawn, but this is essentially them saying, chalk it. Let's go ahead and focus on the next rotation. So,
Nice awareness. Great shots onto Celium. Nice teamwork all round for
and New York does get an advantage on the hard point because of it. It just comes down to what happens next. And yeah, that actually is a full chalk. So Arcides does spawn down low. He tries to make a play to come help Cell. But Simp and who is that? Oh, this was Abizi. They're trying to make a play through. So they're already saying to chalk it. And that's artillery. And he can play useless for as long as he wants here. There's really no need. So, like, this is already a one rotation. And I feel like a lot of people in this position would sit there and say, I'm just going to hold useless and then wait for help, which may have been the correct call considering that he is working for streaks. But I think that this play kind of showcases what Atlanta are trying to continually do. That just being in a position that looks like this for the next hardpoint isn't good enough. They want to turn it actually into this. They want to see if they can maybe force the spawns. I don't know if there are spawns down here for P4. Maybe Glowfrosty or Faye, maybe either of you guys would know, because I haven't seen enough of the map to know if there are spawns that exist down there for the fourth hard point. But the idea is eventually you want to be able to spawn up this way for P5, yeah? So this is, again, showing that an early rotation is in the works here and why Simp wants to try to push through here. In worst case scenario, I would have to imagine that means that New York would spawn up top this way. I don't know if there are spawns down here. That one doesn't count because P3 is still active. Okay, so left to right is how this hard point's going to go. And interesting, I actually didn't recognize this spawn out in real time. But you could again see draw a 50-yard line down the hard point. Because Atlanta has more pressure onto this side of that 50-yard line, they have put enough pressure onto the spawns to force New York to spawn all the way out. Because your two spawn locations are largely going to be in one of these two spots. So, very conscious decision here for Atlanta to try to get a little bit of a push through.
The split spawns are coming through. Great time to see if FaZe has that spawn awareness, and maybe Simp does.
Okay, so this is interesting. I'm kind of getting the answer here. Do you think 3 subs are viable on this map? Probably. But at the same point, I definitely think a 2-2 split is also very successful at times. Look at the pressure that's being established right here. And New York doesn't want to try to cut through this lane. I think they probably should be. But they're making the decision to wrap all the way back around. They really want these P5 spawns. And I don't know. It's difficult. I can see why. But the problem is, if Atlanta has anybody watching the middle in any of those two locations, they can read that entire play. And once they read this, I have to imagine that someone's going to come out to try to help defend this. I would have to imagine, because they will get this read from Simp in one way or another. So I'm a bit interested to see that with this 50-50 kind of split spawn situation that they had, that they're trying to make the play away from the objective and not just take the loss on the chin and play for the hard point. And maybe cut someone through on a pinch just to try to get to the hill, and then they can focus on trying to work their way back around. Kind of difficult to evaluate, at least as of yet, but yeah, so there's the help, like mentioned. Simp does find a kill in the kill feed. He gives that informational read. Both players come out to try to help this right in front of Coop. So there's the break. New York has a chance now to essentially chalk the rotation and play for the hard point.
In New York, they're having to chalk this up and rotate already. They have so far to go. FaZe right now on point on the brand new map.
They're looking great. That's a great first 4 hard points for Atlanta. Well, really, it's a great first hard point for New York, considering they're not spawning for P2 side. But a great second, third, and fourth from Atlanta overall. Rotations have been very well timed positionally. They're reading every play that New York wants to bring to the table. And there's really not a lot that you can fault New York for. Maybe their decision-making on which direction they're going is a bit off, but we have the luxury of looking at this overhead. You know what I mean? Like, you can definitely see what New York is trying to do, and you can't fault them for the decisions that they're making in my mind here. So, hold on. I just got a ping from somebody. I want to see it. Player announcement. Captain.
Artillery strike to work with. Again, quite an open map. Lots of places to really play that effectively, but
And so this is the one opportunity that New York has. This is where one of my favorite things about watching good hardpoint in Call of Duty in the last couple of years, including last year, was when teams, like how they were chalking and rotating around the map and at what needed to happen for them to go great. So you don't have the ability anymore spawning back here in your mind to play through this hardpoint, because that essentially puts yourself into a spot to where you're just playing for 20 seconds and then you're still forcing yourself to have to break for P5 against the spawns of Atlanta, which we know are back here. Yeah. So New York says, screw it, chalk it, let's overwhelm. This is that same setup that they had from before, but this time they've got all 4 players as a part of this. They've cleared out the middle. They have a free rotation to get in from multitude of angles, and this is going to give them an opportunity with where the ARs are to actually zone off any rotations coming in with favorable spawns. You can kind of see it off Clayster's POV right here. And then you also got to keep in mind that number 7 is Diamond Con. So if he's up top on this balcony, he can see everything coming this direction. So this is the one really good moment here from New York. Must-win situation in my mind when it comes to trying to get into this hard point and win this rotation. And that's beautiful. So it's just a simple little hit. Overwhelm this way. You've got clearance in the middle of the map. You're clearing this space. And this is, again, that scrap 20. What did we say about scrap 20 when we were going through that little list of how we break down the hard point overall? That scrap 20, you want to zone the rotation. Look what New York has done. They have now forced Atlanta to spawn all the way out. So they've forced that respawn away. So they have won this rotation by zoning. So now that we're out of the scrap 20, about to go to the initial 20, what do we want to see them do? Lock the spawns. Wrong color. And zone the hard point. Those are the 2 keys that we're looking for coming up right here for New York. They don't want to just be bunkered. They don't want to lock down the hard point. They want to lock down the spawns and then zone the hard point. So we want to see a bit of a focus through and then turn behind. To set up that defensive line of scrimmage to look something like this. That would be great.
The kills and YSL flooding the bottom side. All you have to do now is worry about the attack that will come from.
And they're doing just that, mostly. But this is where things become difficult when you're facing up against a streak. And you also got to keep in mind that this is actually a way we can kind of flip the script here and kind of flip the narrative. What's the goal for Atlanta in this initial 20? They also want to lock down the spawns and be able to force the zone away from the hard point. So with them spawning in this position, these streaks will allow them a chance to get in and also contest through. So neither of those things will be very plausible for New York to hold on to. Clayster's doing well. He moves all the way around to the back. He still falls. And now you've got another situation where, oh, I didn't realize there are spawns right here. I thought it would just be you're either spawning here or you're spawning here. Okay, so this is actually all right for New York. They actually are. I didn't realize there were spawns down here in trench. It's interesting. Okay. So with these trench spawns, still initial 20, but barely 49 seconds. No, 10 more seconds to go for that initial 20. You've lost the ability to lock down spawns. So the next objective is to lock down the hard point. Going to be tough to figure that you've got a player who spawned out for Atlanta. I think if you're coming for New York right now, you're saying they've flipped. They flip spawns. They're in the back. We're spawning in trench. So our whole objective is to get in and try to help this. Would love to see someone jump up to try to hit from this angle, especially if it's an AR, because you've got the ability to read if there are any players coming across, but we'll see what kind of unfolds here. Hell of a win from Asim. He had a great series this versus Atlanta. Okay, so they win back the spawns. This is a great moment for New York. They essentially exist right through the streaks.
Gotta write that one down to make sure I keep that in the back of my mind. And now the attack on the hill is here.
Chaos. Okay. Contest 20 is about to be over, so we're going back into scrap 20. And this is where things become interesting because I feel like there's going to be a situation where teams are going to find a way to kind of push the envelope by essentially anchoring someone towards this back this way, and then kind of setting up a defensive line here to kind of like a 0K from last year, where you can zone some spawn traps into play from what were favorable spawns, and then get a free look at hardpoint time. But I'd be interested to see what the spawn fluctuation looks like, if that's even plausible. And RCDs is making a long wrap to eventually win the second hardpoint spawns around Temple. And that actually flips. Wow. Okay, there are some spawns on this hardpoint. We have seen what I thought was just favorable spawns, but apparently there's also favorable spawns. There's also these close break spawns, but look at these. I mean, wow. You can literally spawn anywhere on this map, on any given hill. That's kind of wild, because even when P2 was open, we saw break spawns all the way in the back over here. That's actually pretty nuts.
The hardpoint rotations to go right back smack bang in the middle of the map.
Okay, so Atlanta gets an opportunity here to stall what looked to be a very good initial setup for the fifth hardpoint for New York, mostly off the streaks, but they're also able to kind of make chaos happen in the spawn situation, and then a long route from Arcity's late allows Atlanta to play the right side of the map here. So New York's only opportunity to get successful P1 has to be from places here in Coop or underneath by barrels. And it's not exactly a safe rotation to get there, because you can just kind of see it's the same situation we saw from the first hard point last time around. There are just so many angles. Number one is Arcity's. He's in a spot right here. He actually just popped up in the kill feed right above us. He can lock down this lane. So with that lockdown, you've got a BZ trying to play forward to deny this space, and Atlanta has now completely put suffocating effort into the subliners to keep them spawning away. Yeah, FaZe look really good on this map.
I think I might disagree with you, honestly. I think FaZe are bringing all the heat in the world, right? You're going to have a near 100-point lead after this P1 hill potentially, and if New York don't break through and flip the spawns, we saw what happened the first go-around on P2. Abizi is just posted up on the new hill. He's not going to give anything away. They're going to make sure they stay alive to keep those spawns, and New York getting chopped down in the point as well.
It's just, New York at this point hasn't won a rotation outside of that 4 to 5. And even in that, they got denied by streaks. It's so hard. I feel like this map is so rotation heavy, where if you're losing the timings on rotations, you're going to, it's kind of like early Moscow in a way. People didn't understand like how to cut the middle of the map. I don't think that's really the reason why this map is so difficult here, because we are seeing some cut opportunities, but it just feels like if you lose the momentum on timings, you really have to be okay giving away a full 60 and try to reset that tempo.
Just to try and rotate, maybe actually small opening Clayster.
Yeah, this another situation where I feel like for New York, with you spawning in this position, just commit to getting across. And I think you just have to wait for these two players to join up. Turning around for the hard point with 8 seconds is not exactly, I think, the correct play here. And it looks like they are starting to turn to try to play through the back, but the problem is they've got nobody playing here. So even though they do force a one spawn out, you've got actually no pressure where you need to have pressure for blocking or flipping P2 spawns. Like these two members in the back here, that might be enough once the second hardpoint opens in 5 seconds
might be able to get through the new, but
for them to get spawns.
They're going to need to win, and Clay able to get the first.
But you called it. They need to go on a bit of a hike, and instead of hiking, I think they called it.
So let's see what Simp could do. What is this going to do to spawns right here with Simp blocking and rugs?
Now they're there already. Clay's going to be able to do what he can from this spot.
Yeah, New York is tepid. They're not really coming through to clear. But they do have a good zone in the middle of the map. They're, again, are they zoning the... here's the two things. Again, initial 20. They have not locked the spawns. They have not zoned the hard point.
Oh, but number 3, once again.
So how are they going to be able to do that?
He's in the top side of the temple. Look at him, just chilling, having a moment to himself. A moment of quiet reflection before he unleashes hell from the top side.
And that position is enough to spawn a seam out. That's no bueno. No bueno.
Just make the defense that bit
Are these 50-50s? No, that's crazy. That's actually crazy. Watch these spawns here. First one down is a seam. We already know where he's going to spawn. He's going to spawn back here. Clayster is also... Where's Arcides? He's number 1. Watch number 1.
Softer as again. The pinch is now on Diamond.
That's actually maddening, I think, if you're New York. You've got one player front gold, one player near rugs, and New York still cannot block spawns in the back. That's got to be maddening. Yeah, I think you might be right, Hamza. I think this might just be P2 Hackney Yard all over again.
He's so sneaky! As he continues to play, the break is good from the front, and just like that, Simp's little sneaky moves.
So how is this better than Crossroads?
Foothold here in the hard.
I think a lot of it is the fact that Crossroads P4 is just a disaster of a hill both times. Because the thing about Crossroads is that you could spawn anywhere in the map at any point in time, because literally you could spawn, like the spawns can flip so very, very quickly. Because it's a 3-lane map. Like, if we were to pull it up real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to watch the Seattle, Florida game here as well. Like, the lanes for this map are technically here. Right? Like, these are the lanes for the map. But the map actually plays east to west, not north to south. Because the spawns are not preferred north to south, because this is the way the map is laid out. The spawns are preferred east to west, depending on where you are. So it really, like, when two of your lanes are being dictated by preferred spawn locations, and your third lane is negligible, it essentially turns into kind of a cluster. The other way that you could look at it is like, it's still a 3-lane map shift. But I think the map is set up to where these are your 3 lanes. But the map is not played north to south. It's played east to west. Did you guys even see that? Okay, cool.
They could get the remaining 20-odd seconds, and that is
I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like, this map is not square. This map is more rectangular than it is square. If there was a lane where there was stuff up here, the map might be a million times better. But I think the problem here with what we just saw is the fact that your spawn system has you in these preferred spawns. I think this is the preferred number 1. This is the bailout. And then you've got these. I don't think there's a spawn here. Unless New York just spawned there. Wait, did they just spawn there? No, they're rotating there. Where did they spawn? They spawned Trench. So New York spawns down here.
Like that. Simp's little sneaky moves gives his teammates a very solid.
Let me see. Where does this team spawn this time? Number 5.
And that is a great play.
Yeah, he spawns all the way out. So there's actually no spawns down here. The map is not big enough north to south in this space to have what I call them break spawns. There are no break spawns anywhere in here. The break spawns are all the way back this way. But this is inherently a problem anytime you put a hardpoint on the boundaries of a map. There's no contest over anywhere in this space because there's no map that exists. That's where the problem with rectangular maps comes into play. That's why we had problems with Hackney Yard last year. The hardpoints were against the back walls, and it was a rectangular map. Like, why does everyone think that Raid is such a great map? Think about where the hardpoints are in relation to how the map is structured. So when RCD spawns right next to the hardpoint, where would you say he's supposed to spawn instead? I mean, supposed to is a weird phrase, but instead of, like, so let's go backwards. Let's evaluate with the lay of the land when he spawns up. He's number 1 when he spawns up right here. Okay, so in my mind, New York should be blocking this. In my mind, RCD should be spawning down here.
The defense that bit softer.
But, well, what was the timing on that? Hold on.
Hell from the top side.
Watch the timing of these two guys spawning.
There, he's gonna find the first. Just make the defense that bit.
So it's Clayster who spawns up first. Why Clayster doesn't spawn here? It feels like the game is trying to sit there and say that here's the order of preferred spawns. We'd prefer to spawn you here. That's currently blocked. Okay. How about here? Nope, that's also currently blocked. Then I guess this would be the third? But that doesn't explain why a seam spawns in the fourth preferred spot first. There's no, I don't know. I'm at a complete loss. I don't really understand it. I feel like what should have happened here in an ideal world, that if the preferred order of spawns, because the game has a preferred system, how it at least in my mind, it's considering where can I spawn you? I want to spawn you here. Can't do that. I want to spawn you here. Can't do that either. So where's the third option? And it has to be right here. Because it's because number 4 is mid-map. I mean, is he? So unless this is the third, and it's sitting there saying, nope, because this guy's at the jump wall, and it said, okay, fine, I'll just spawn you into the fourth place, and then the game recognizes that this guy's moved, so I'll put you back in the third spot. Yeah, once he hops the wall, yeah, I mean,
He's gonna find the first.
and technically you've got, I mean, New York isn't good. I don't know if this, people have kind of had a wives' tale here that's like, whoever controls the hard point controls like how the spawns also work, but that doesn't seem to be a consideration either because he still spawns down here.
Just make the defense that bit.
So there's number 6. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm thinking that if the game says, okay, New York is going to spawn up here, then spawn both of them up here, and then Arcades has a place to spawn. Apparently, there are no spawns down in this space. This, I feel like, should have been a bailout 5th spawn, because this is not, I mean, the hardpoint is currently in possession of New York with a player contesting rugs, and the game says, whatever.
Softer.
Like, I need to see more to really know. I feel like in my mind, confidently, like, is it actually 1, 2, 3, 4 for spawns? But I guess I don't really understand why there's not a spawn, like, through this part of the map a little bit more liberally. And I see what you mean, like, 8 is on this side of the 50-yard line, but that should still, with the hard point in their control, be enough to block that spawn. I mean, where else? Like, what else do you want them to do, right? Like, I'm having a hard time understanding that one right there. I'll say that much.
As again, the pinch is now on. Diamond Con can't find him. He's so sneaky.
That's tough. That's really tough for New York, actually.
Just like that, Simp's little sneaky moves gives his teammates a very solid foothold here in the hard point. They could get the remaining 20.
I mean, you have to contest this too. Like, you just have to go. You can't go down 220 to 110 and think you're gonna win the game. So,
a brilliant Apocalypse Hardpoint.
wait, is that same situation happen again? Did we just get parallel spawns in the back? Did we just see New York spawn here and Atlanta spawn here on this break attempt?
That is a great play. NYSL from the top, cut to ribbons. Mac wins it.
There's number 6.
For the 1v1, not a
Bro. I don't know.
chance. Simp once again.
Yeah, they're literally spawning parallel to each other. We're literally getting this and this right now. So that has to be how the game is thinking. This is the preferred. This is the second. Wow.
Brilliant Apocalypse Hardpoint from him.
I mean, that's just
Wait, and then did someone from New York just spawn top?
Brilliant Apocalypse Hardpoint.
Was that kill on Celium up top over here where number 5 is? Does Max spawn on top of him?
From him.
Bruh. I don't know, boys and girls. Like, what are we doing? Like, what is the, like, why not here this time around? Like, second hard point's still active.
I mean, that's just example number like 35. It seems like of why FaZe is so strong. It's not just the overall skill cap or skill ceiling that this team has. They can even make the smart plays as well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So New York to zone this hard point. My head hurts. Ouchie, dude. Same. This is the struggles of trying to learn a new map, though. New York needs to be in a position where they need to try to spawn trap in the back as much as humanly possible. You have to deny routes. You have to be able to deny this. You have to be able to deny that. Deny this long push. And New York is actually set up in a pretty good spot to do that. I'm watching your pinch. This guy is only responsible for making sure nobody gets into coop. Everybody else can focus on the front. Okay, so they're taking away space here. Just comes down to the setup that they choose. Number 6, you can kind of see his Clayster. Looks like he's trying to watch this space. And it looks like number 8 and Mac is trying to get over to barrels to try to contest this space. So everything is being zoned correctly here, pending they can kill Celium.
Trade him out, just couldn't find a behind the pillar. Advanced stuff coming out, but maybe on New York trying to get that ball rolling, trying to make it happen.
Good.
Here. Asim headset cranked, able to find that first kill. Slides coming out.
Asim has been, dude, Asim has been so integral to this New York team.
At least for the moment.
Could be an easy kill. Nice.
He's already on the point. Nice bit of work.
Yeah, I'm losing my mind right now. Yo, Glow Frosty, I've got no idea, dude. 5 spawn outs because Temple and Close is contested, and so does 2 at the parallel. Make more some sense. Kind of, but I've never seen a situation in a prior COD map where this space for this hard point is leading to both teams spawning it in. I haven't seen that before. I guess my big question, like for the formula of the spawn mindset here, is why are there no spawns here or here? Why is everything either behind that line or behind that line for this hard point? And it's not even like behind, it's actually like behind this line. It's like there are no spawns anywhere in the middle for this hard point. That's kind of confusing in my mind too. Because I feel like even spawning useless would be better. Like that takes away so much ground here in the back. And I mean, to be fair, like this is also not a 3-lane map, right? Like this is kind of just a 2-lane map. Because it's not square. There's not a 3rd lane up here. That's been my kind of big problem with a lot of these maps, is the fact that as it feels like they're trying to force 3 lanes into rectangles is what it is. I mean, not to come off like I'm a big hater, but I mean, think about the maps that we have. Like this isn't even a 2. This isn't even this is a, here's your 3 lanes on checkmate. Well, not really what I would call 3 lanes. Here's your 3 lanes on Crossroads. There's not enough space. Like, if this part of the map worked differently, I'm okay with there being, this is how the hard points work. That would make this map make a bit more sense. Here's Garrison. I mean, here's lane number 1. I guess. Like, here's lane number 2. I guess. And then here's lane number 3. And then, I mean, Moscow is a little bit better. I mean, we can delete. This doesn't exist anymore. Like, this is probably one of the only maps that actually has 3 actual lanes. Where you've got this, and then this. But, like, the majority of the map is played within here. And guess what? That's a square, not a rectangle. Does that kind of make sense? Like, in my mind, like, it has to be square. It can't be rectangular. Like, all the hard points on this map find themselves essentially in that square. And then you've also got raid, which is literally a square. I'm gonna have to change the markings. So that's where I think the inherent problem is with some of the maps that we have, is that they're not squared or laid out to make like that. I mean, it's just they're all rectangles. Garrison is one lane. You can't change my mind, honestly. All right, let's get back in. We're talking too much about map design. We're getting away from Apocalypse. I mean, this map, to be fair, is pretty much already over at this point in time. Sorry, wrong scene. I mean, I think Miles makes this point here in a moment where he says that, like, Atlanta could just win off scrap time if they want to. Like, they could just keep playing for scraps. That's a decent... Okay, let's just give some credit where credit is due. It's actually pretty decent, again, from what we saw out of New York. Okay, they lock down this lane first. They get in with 3 players. They get to a spot to where they can contest this space a little bit. So they're doing a decent job of trying to zone out this space. And then late, they're able to still try to lock down this hard point. I think they even pick up this player on this pinch attempt as well. So it's all pretty good from New York. Yeah, so the information is there. I think the one thing that was missed here for New York to really lock this down was the fact that they didn't really have anybody up top inside TV. But they still come out on top of the trades mostly. So not bad. It's actually, all things considered, pretty damn good. Okay, so now, if you're New York, this is great. These kills are incredible. Absolutely incredible for New York. Because you've now contested and zoned this lane. And technically speaking, you can get up into cave to where you're zoning this. And, well, I guess you're zoning this and you're zoning this.
Right off the rip, FaZe spawning by Temple, now with a long run ahead of them. It's a nice kill on the Clayster, another few seconds.
It's a little passive. And, whoa, okay, so Atlanta's actually just going to play for spawn side. They're just going to heavy play for spawns. Same thing New York did last time around, where they're essentially chalking this back time, trying to play through here, spawning here. Remember back to the first rotation? New York was spawning here. And they just decided to play all the way through the back. Same idea.
Right now, how well can New York hold on to this hard point, though, when it flips open chance? That is the question.
I think the one missing piece here is the fact that they did not get someone forward. And I could see kind of why. Because they lost the players that were contesting this space. I think there is a little bit passive. Would have loved to have seen someone get up top. Would have loved to see this guy get into cave. Someone reinforcing from the back. I don't know. Setting up that defensive line would have been nice, though.
Well, FaZe has been on point with their breaks, and they get one more break on a hill, and they win the game right now. You got to see him inside the point, doing what he can, and while his teammates are there for the trades.
Big pickups.
Number 4 in the minimap of BZ, trying to stay alive and potentially block some of these spawns. You can actually see DiamondCon trying to wall bang him. New York hunts him down. And still alive so far, chipping away at this lead. Well, you can actually tell.
We're out of the first 20, so there's really not an opportunity here for New York to try to zone this hard point. This now comes down to making sure that you can lock the hard point down and try to zone the rotation, which does come from contesting largely this push through. I feel like not a lot of teams are going to want to rotate through this building. It's just too difficult to get through. It's not safe whatsoever. So right now, you see it right here. Celium is just kind of watching from the window, and the rest of his teammates are trying to work from behind.
FaZe kind of feels that pressure. They're sending these 3 players on the flank. They're basically trying to rotate from middle.
Big kill for Mac.
Doing this with 40 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah,
NT.
Busy though, able to make a break on his own potentially here. Nice shots, Inuus. Oh my god, Inuus team, nice shots. Does get the kill, trying to keep him pinned in that courtyard, trying to hold him in position so they can't make it over towards the next hard point. Arcees is already on his way over. It is going to be on to Clay, who wins the gun.
So the whole flip attempt. Defend from here. Push through here. Get to this point where you're blocking those spawns and you force New York to spawn out. As soon as you start finding success in this push through, I think you even saw it there. We can go back and watch. Watch number 2. Here's that success on this push through. Salim, who's playing defensively, says, all right, time to join the fun. I want to say one more teammate spawns behind him. But the whole idea is, as an AR player, he can't really come through and challenge this. So he's going to play smart, wrap around. SMG will spawn behind him and then push through. So you're putting pressure around the back with forces. And then if you do have any kind of trail spawners, I don't know if that's like a vernacular I'm comfortable using, but as a part of this play, your whole attempt is to block these spawns. You're going to have some players that kind of trail behind on spawns. Those players will commit to trying to get to the hard point, and that will eventually lead to not just a block, but a full flip.
Basically trying to rotate from new, and they're doing
So there goes Celium. There's number 3. It's Simp. Watch Simp's route, number 3.
Oh my god, nice shots. Let's get the
This is where we get that same setup to where we're through. Now we're blocking, and we're eventually going to put enough pressure to flip and spawn New York out. Kind of the same exact situation that we were talking about for P2, just executed on a little bit of an easier hard point to kind of fluctuate the spawns on, it feels like.
It is going to be on to Clay, who wins the gun.
You have this type of videos recorded on other maps I would like to see. We do these pretty regularly here on the channel. Not really uploaded to YouTube, but we do regularly do this on this channel live. It's just the content is too long. Like, we've been on this map for an hour. Yeah, see, the problem here is, at this point, New York just isn't in a position to where they could do what we wanted to do in those initial 20, which is zone the hard point. They have to make sure that they don't get broken, and they know that they've got pressure already coming from behind, and likely that means there's going to be hits coming from this direction as well.
First, and obviously dealing with all the pressure in the world. Now, of course, those spawns are going to flip right now, so you got to respond with the pressure.
That's good, though.
Exactly that. Clay can't find the kill, but his teammates still nearby for the trade.
Baton pass right here is what I like to call this. Your anchor, currently in DiamondCon, who's playing from this position, once he recognizes that his players are falling from the front, he's got to come to try to reinforce this, and it's baton passing to whoever spawns up next will be the next person to anchor. Really smart.
We know this hill is difficult to break, and again, you get one more. FaZe 6 seconds. That is all they need, and they're making their move.
Because RCDC can make it work out.
Oh, what a pinch. Dude, what a freaking pinch. Watch this route. People spawning in this position in your league play matches, low-level AM teams. Bruh, I feel like 20 times out of 21 in the AM scene, these players would just go and try to hit from here. Watch the freaking route. Like, the patience for this from Atlanta is so beautiful. Look at Arcides. Not moving anywhere. Look at Cell. Not moving anywhere. Look at these guys. Not going anywhere. Cell's just watching this cross. He's just making sure nobody's coming this direction. Arcides is making sure he can watch this front so no one challenges. Dude. And the whole play is setting up your SMGs to be playmakers and come around the back to pitch. This is a guaranteed flip. Dude, it's just the trust that this team has is literally stupid. That's dumb. I hate it. Stupid. It's stupid. And the thing about that play, which is so freaking brilliant, is once these ARs try to make some space happen by contesting, waiting for these SMGs to hit the element of surprise, they know that the SMGs have already got them spawns. So your ARs will fall as you expect them to, but they'll just spawn right back up and be able to watch the pinch and anchor. Fucking brilliant, dude. Like, watch the spawn here of Arcides. Arcides spawns in the back. And his whole read is to get to a position to make sure nobody cuts right here. Let your SMGs just stay scrappy in front. Look at the angle that he's holding. Look at it. None shall pass.
And with that, Atlanta FaZe, they do it.
Guys are too good. This map has been out for a week, dudes. Calm down. Dude. I really feel for New York, though, because I really do believe that it does come down to the fact that 4 to 5 rotation, when they're chalking this with these spawns and they're making this rotation around the back and they win and they've got a nice zone coming forward, just gets broken by a streak. Like, that's where they could have found momentum. Like, imagine a world from New York's perspective to where Clayster could exist back here, keep that pinch safe early on this hardpoint time. You've got players that could get into a position right around Coop, where they're contesting this, and if they are successful in that hold, they could then get their exit around this front side and then be ready to go for the first. Like, that's how they change that momentum around. But as soon as they get broken, then they have to be the ones committing, and that's when Atlanta does almost the exact same thing to them. Well, it's actually this route from our cities that comes through. It's too good. I'm passing out.